Welcome everyone. My name is Michael. I'm junior expert at QCR, and today I have the pleasure to speak with Doug, our Chief Content Officer. So Doug, tell us what's been happening in Quantum over the course of last week.
Last week was a pretty eventful week. Several news items in which I will summarize. But first, I came back last week from the Inside Quantum Technology Conference that was held in New York City. It was a good conference. It had a pretty heavy focus on quantum networking, QKD, post-quantum cryptography. There's actually more talks about that subject than there was on quantum computing. So a lot of good material there, and I'm glad I went. One of the highlights for me, though, was our friends at Connect. One night they chartered a bus, and the bus took us from the conference location in Manhattan to their labs at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And they took us into their labs, and we got to see their hardware. I always love seeing hardware. And they were showing their network. They call it Gotham Q, which is a 34-kilometer network that goes through Brooklyn and Queens. And they showed us it in operations in real time. And we were sitting right there at the table there where they had all their photon generators and their phase compensators and all that type of stuff. So it was good, and it was actually quite impressive. So networking is certainly here to stay. Related to that, one of the news items we had last week was a new quantum network test bed that's being set up in Quebec with some help from the Canadian government as well as the Quebec province. These test beds are being set up all over the place now. We're tracking almost 24 networks of various types, in the UK, Asia, and in the US, in Tennessee, in the DC area, Boston, Massachusetts, Arizona, Illinois. A lot of people are setting up these test bed networks. They're metropolitan. The key thing, though, is that right now with quantum networking, the big issue is, of course, you can't go long distance. You need something called a quantum repeater. There were several talks at that conference about quantum repeaters, but nothing is actually in full production at this point. But that's the thing to watch, because that will be a key element before we can see real quantum networks take place for quantum networking and those types of things. Another announcement last week was from Atom Computer. They're testing their 1180 qubit neutral atom processor. They're working it internally right now. They intend on making it available to users next year in 2024. We know of several other companies that are building up right now 1,000 qubit type machines. So it's not like they will be the only one and that they're years ahead of other people. There'll be other people announcing those types of machines within the next 12 months or so. Just because you've assembled one of these machines, there's a lot of work left to do to tweak it and optimize it. It's not just the number of qubits, it's the quality of the qubits. You need to get very high fidelities in order to be able to do useful work. The Atom technology does have some advantages because they've already demonstrated some long coherence times. They had a paper where they had 40 seconds worth of coherence time. There's still a lot of work to do, and I'm sure that's what they're working on now, as well as all the other people assembling these large machines. 1,000 qubits is still not enough to really do error correction outside of some research or tests in error correction, because by the time you get done, maybe you have 10 logical qubits from 1,000 physical qubits. But again, their progress is continuing to happen. On the government award side, a couple pieces of big news is that the U.S. government has designated some tech hubs as part of the Chips and Science Act. They announced last Monday 31 different awards. 2 of them were in quantum. One for the Chicago area, metropolitan area, and one for Colorado. The real money doesn't kick in until phase 2, which is slated to be announced in 20. Of the 31 awards they made for phase 1, there will be a down selection to maybe 5 or 10 tech hubs for phase two. And phase two is where the real money is, because they're allocating somewhere between 50 million to 75 million in funding for these 5 to 10 hubs. So we don't know if the Chicago and the Colorado groups will make it to phase two. We would certainly wish them the best of luck, but at least they've gotten to the first step. It's sort of like getting into the semifinals is the way I would put it. We continue to see in the quantum industry a number of partnerships and collaborations. That's certainly going to be key to success. It has been for a long time, and it will certainly extend into the future. We see hardware companies partnering with software companies partnering with end users to jointly develop applications. Quantum is just too complex that no one company can do everything on their own. We announced something like 6 or 7 partnerships of various forms last week. We had articles on them in the Quantum Computing Report, and this includes things like D-Wave working with Quantum Basel. Quantum Basel's been partnering with INQ also and some others. Scalink is partnering with Atlantic Quantum on some hardware chip sample holders. Pascal is working with Sumitomo on a project for air traffic control, low altitude air traffic control for drones and maybe even flying cars. QMware is partnering with Quera to make the Quera available on some of the QMware clouds. And Pascal is partnering with a group called Jesda. So a lot of partnerships are happening, and we expect to see many, many more over the next few months. Finally, we are also seeing geographic expansions at various companies. They are continuing to open new offices. Some of these are sales offices to get more business. Some of them are R&D offices. Getting quantum talent on board has been a challenge. It's probably be a challenge for quite a period of time. But if you can set up a satellite R&D location in another location, that gives you access to a different talent pool. And as long as you can get all your different sites coordinating, working with each other, that's certainly a plus. Alice and Bob setting up an office in the Boston area is indicative. Several other European quantum companies are choosing Boston, and Boston is the location where they're setting up their North American beachheads. They're not doing it on the West Coast. Boston certainly is a hub. Of course, you have Harvard, MIT, as well as several startup companies there. So, and travel up and down the East Coast is relatively easy. There's a lot of quantum activity in the East Coast. We'll continue to see that, both partnerships and geographic expansions. And those were the highlights over the past week.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.